Today's lesson is a deal in ostriches. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue to summarize our featured short story for the month of July, A Deal in Ostriches by H.G. Wells. Now, so far, what has happened? We've got Padishah traveling on a cargo ship and passenger ship going from India to London, and there are people from all walks of life on that boat. There are also some ostriches on that boat, and of course, Padishah is flaunting his wealth. One of the ostriches actually plucks the diamond off of his turban and swallows it. And of course, there's a chaotic situation. The ostriches are running wild, so they don't know which ostrich actually swallowed the diamond. Word spread throughout the ship, and then Mr. Potter found out about this, and he had an idea. I'm going to send a message to the actual owner and offer to buy the ostriches. And the owner accepted, and then Potter thought, hey, I've got the ostriches now. Somehow I'll get that diamond and keep it for myself.
Sounds like a very, very good plan. Because, of course, if you can buy the ostriches, you also get to keep whatever is inside the ostriches. And that was the idea of this Potter gentleman. He offered to just innocently buy the ostriches, but he's hoping, of course, also to strike it rich, because inside one of the ostriches is, he hopes, this missing diamond, a very large, very expensive diamond.
Indeed. So let's find out how this story continues now. We're going to introduce a diamond merchant aboard the ship, and we'll find out how he gets involved. Let's listen to the first part of today's lesson, and we'll be right back.
The matter of the ostriches was a hot topic of discussion, and a diamond merchant aboard the ship speculated that Padishah's diamond was likely worth several £1,000s, many times what Potter had paid for the birds. Considering this information and the level of interest aboard the ship, Potter decided to auction each bird off on deck rather than take them home to butcher them.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 auction， 这个字是动词，意思是拍卖，后面常接 off。例如 The charity auctioned off art to raise money for a children's hospital. 那个慈善机构拍卖艺术品，为一家儿童医院募款。另外，这个字也可以当作名词，表示拍卖或是拍卖会。举例来说 There will be an auction to sell off items that people don't want anymore. 这里将举办一场拍卖会，来帮助人们贩售他们不再想要的东西。或者 Janet got a painting at an art auction last weekend. Janet 上周末在艺术拍卖会上买到了一幅画。
Okay, so again, we've got this matter of the ostriches, the issue of the ostriches. Of course, lots of people heard about this on the ship, and it was a hot topic of discussion. Everybody was talking about this incident. Gee, the ostriches are running wild, and one of them has a diamond inside it, but nobody knows which one has it. And Mr. Potter now owns the ostriches. Boy, Mr. Padishah must be angry about that. So, of course, a diamond merchant heard about this, and he was participating in these discussions. And he speculated that Padishah's diamond was likely worth several £1,000s, which means you kind of guess at the value of something. We have speculators in the stock market who try to pick out what the good stocks are going to be and which ones you should invest in. So he speculated, or he estimated, that the diamond was probably worth several £1,000s, many times more the value or the amount of money that Potter paid for the birds. So Mr. Potter probably can make a big profit.
That's right. But of course, this is just speculation. That's the noun form of the verb to speculate, to kind of make an educated guess. So we don't know if the diamond merchant even saw the diamond before it was swallowed by an ostrich. But as an expert, he can make a pretty good, fairly reasonably accurate guess. That's why he speculates that it's worth many times the value of all the birds. Now, considering this information, the value of the birds versus the value of this diamond that's possibly in the birds. So considering this information and the level of interest aboard the ship, Potter decided to auction each bird off on deck rather than take them home to butcher them. Potter seems to be one of those businessmen who's got a quick mind and he kind of thinks in his feet. So he's like, wait a minute, everyone on this boat is crazy about this diamond story. They all know that I own the ostriches. People are very interested in it. The level of interest is very high. So if everyone's talking about this news, the level of interest is very high. So he decides to sort of switch his business strategy. I won't worry about the diamond. I'll just sell the birds themselves because everyone will think that if I get the lucky bird, I'll get the diamond, so they'll be willing to pay a lot. And he decides to sell them in an auction. An auction, of course, is like a live selling situation when the price goes up depending on what the people right there in the room are willing to pay for it. So you might start at $100 and then that gentleman offers $150. Then over here, this lady wants it for $200. And we keep going up and up and up in price until someone decides that's too much. And there's one person left with hopefully a very high price that they have bid in this auction. So he's kind of thinking, if I get this excitement going and keep people really excited about this possibility of this lucky diamond in the ostrich, I'll make a lot of money in this auction, an ostrich auction. Yes, that's right. So he's going to sell them on the boat, and that would also save him the problem of taking the ostriches home back to England to kill them, to butcher them. When you kill an animal and cut it up for meat, as people do with chickens and pork and cows for beef, we are butchering them. So instead of, killing the birds, cutting them open to find the diamond, I won't do that. I'll let people have the dream of doing that, and their dream will make the price in the auction go much higher.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our summary about the first paragraph in today's lesson. Let's move on now and talk about the actual auction itself. Let's listen to the second part.
The first bird sold for nearly £200 to the diamond merchant, who promptly slaughtered it in front of a shocked crowd as soon as the auction hammer fell. Potter forbade any further killing after that, but he continued with the auction.
"第二部分我们看到副词 promptly 指立即、马上或是迅速的，像是 At the end of the test, our teacher told us to promptly put our pencils down. 在考试结束时，我们老师叫我们立刻把铅笔放下，或是 The criminals were promptly arrested at the scene of the crime. 那些罪犯在犯罪现场迅速被逮捕。另外 promptly 也有准时的意思。举例来说 The train arrived promptly at 9 o'clock. 那班火车准时9点抵达。或是 The concert will not start promptly due to some technical problems. 由于一些技术上的问题，演唱会不会准时开始。另外，把 promptly 字尾的 ly 去掉，就变成了动词 prompt， 意思是促使或是驱使。我们可以说 Witnessing pollution firsthand prompted Carl to organize a local cleanup effort. 亲身见证污染情况，促使 Carl 筹划了一个地方清扫活动。也可以说 The research prompted the government to pass stricter smoking regulations. 这项研究促使政府通过更严格的吸烟法规。接着我们看到单字 forbid， 这个字是动词，指禁止或是不准。例如 The teacher forbids her students to chew gum in the classroom. 老师禁止他的学生在教室嚼口香糖。或是 The cafe forbids people from bringing in any outside food or drinks. 这间咖啡简餐店禁止人们携带任何外食或饮料。
Okay, so again, we've got some ostriches for sale here. They are available in an auction. And the first bird, remember an ostrich is a kind of bird, the first bird sold for nearly 200 pounds to the diamond merchant, who promptly slaughtered it in front of a shocked crowd as soon as the auction hammer fell.
Oh my gosh.
So again, this story takes place back in the 1800s, so 200 pounds probably doesn't sound like a lot today, but back then it was probably a small fortune, and the diamond merchant probably thought he was lucky, and yes, I'm going to buy that ostrich for 200 pounds, and then he promptly slaughtered it. Promptly means immediately, right away, without any delay. He slaughtered it, he killed it. He butchered it in front of a shocked crowd. I guess they weren't expecting him to do that. Blood was flying all over the place. It was probably quite a gory scene there. So, of course, because it was so gory, people were shocked. How could he do that on the ship in front of us? That is so gross.
That is pretty disgusting. And, of course, he did it as soon as the sale was over, as soon as the auction hammer fell. You've seen those auctions, and they'll have a hammer, just like a judge might have a hammer, and they hit the table to signal that the auction is over. So when the hammer falls, that basically means the auction is over. They will not accept any more bids. So this guy buys this poor ostrich and immediately takes it and cuts it open to try to look for the diamond, which I assume that he didn't find. But anyways, the shock of watching him do this in front of everyone on this ship was something no one wanted to repeat. So that's why Potter, he forbade any further killing after that. But he continued with the auction. To forbid something, that's the present tense form, is to basically say you can't do something. So when you tell your kids to turn off the television until they finish their homework or something, you are forbidding them from watching television until they finish their homework. You might also forbid them to eat junk food right before dinner time or something like that. You can't do it. I forbid you. So Potter said, okay, all right, we can't have other people killing these ostriches. That's terrible, and it's making the kids upset or something like that. I will continue to sell them, but you have to take them off the boat before you cut them open looking for the diamond. Yeah, I'm sure the ostriches were happy to hear this news.
And that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the third part. We'll listen to it first and find out if this story has a happy ending or not.
When all was said and done, Potter made about 1,000 pounds from the ostrich's sale. But the diamond was far more valuable, he said, and he called himself a fool for not keeping the birds. Padishah tried giving the winners his address so that they could mail him the diamond if they found it, but they ignored him, as they had no legal obligation to help him. Both Potter and Padishah seemed to have come out poorly from the ordeal, but, curiously enough, they were spotted a week after landing, shopping together in downtown London like two friends who had just come into a good deal of money.
最后第三部分我们看到单字 obligation， 这个字是名词，指义务或是责任。举例来说 We have an obligation to ensure that all of our products are safe for use. 我们有义务确保我们所有的商品都可以安全使用。也可以说 Thomas has an obligation to pay money to his ex-wife every month. Thomas 有责任每个月付钱给他的前妻。另外，补充这个字的形容词 obligatory, O-B-L-I-G-A-T-O-R-Y, obligatory, 意思是必须的或是强制性的。例如 In this class, it is obligatory to do your homework. 在这堂课，你必须做作业。或是 John had to attend an obligatory training course before he started his new job. John 展开新工作前，必须去上强制参加的训练课程。
Okay, so the third part of our lesson today begins by saying, when all was said and done, when everything was over, Potter made about 1,000 pounds from the ostrich's sale. Now, again, 1,000 pounds doesn't sound like a lot of money today, but back then it was probably quite a bit. But it's all relative, isn't it? 1,000 pounds from the ostriches was a good amount of money, but he probably could have made a lot more if he'd found the diamond and sold it.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. So he made 1,000 pounds from the sale of the ostrich, and that's when all was said and done. Once all the selling was over, once all the birds had been sold off, Potter walked away with about 1,000 pounds. But the diamond, of course, but the diamond was far more valuable, he said, and he called himself a fool for not keeping the birds. So this sounds like a case of seller's remorse. When you sell something and then afterwards you think, oh, I shouldn't have sold that. It's more valuable than what I got for it, or I should have kept it because, now I miss it or something like that. He's kind of saying, oh, I shouldn't have sold those birds off like that. I got 1,000 pounds. That's not bad, but man, that diamond could be worth 5,000 or 10,000 pounds. So he calls himself a fool. I'm such a silly person for selling these birds off for such a low price. Well, Padishah, the rich Indian man who had the diamond but lost the diamond, he tried giving the winners his address so that they could mail him the diamond if they found it. But they ignored him as they had no legal obligation to help him. So Padishah right now seems this sort of pathetic figure. He's lost his diamond. He didn't buy any of the ostriches. He's kind of thinking, but that was my diamond. You can't just sell the ostrich. That was my diamond. So he's going around to the people who bought these ostriches saying, I'm Mr. Padishah. I own the diamond that could be in your ostrich. Please give it to me after you find it, after the ostrich gets butchered or whatever. Yeah, I don't think these people are going to feel that way because they're going to say, well, I paid for the ostrich, so whatever is in it is mine. I'm not just going to give it back to you. And also, they have no legal obligation to help him. They have no obligation, no responsibility. There is no reason, there's no law that says if I find something valuable in a thing I bought, but that valuable thing belongs to you, I have to give it back. I bought the thing, including everything that was inside it. So you can ask, but we're not going to give you back your diamond if we find it.
And both Potter and Padishah seem to have come out poorly from the ordeal. But curiously enough, they were spotted a week after landing, shopping together in downtown London like two friends who had just come into a good deal of money. We've got the phrase to come out, which means the result of something. So they seem to have come out poorly from this ordeal. That means they had a poor result from this situation. I remember in the old days when we sent film into the processors to get our pictures developed, everyone would ask, hey, did the pictures come out? Did you get a good result from your pictures? And oftentimes we'll say, they came out bad. They were underexposed. They were out of focus and stuff like that. But in this particular case, they came out poorly from the ordeal, or at least it seems as if they had a bad rap from this situation.
That's right. And it's described as an ordeal because if we believe their story, Potter lost out on the ostriches. He didn't make as much money as he could. Of course, Padishah lost out because he lost a diamond that he'll never get back and he won't even get paid for it. So it sounds like a terrible experience that they lived through, and that's exactly what an ordeal is. It's kind of a terrible, difficult, challenging, frustrating experience that you might live through. It could be something serious, the loss of a loved one, facing a serious illness in your life. That, of course, could be an ordeal, but it could also be my plane was delayed, they lost my bags, the hotel didn't have my reservation, I ended up sleeping on a sofa in a hotel lobby, that kind of just bad experience where it's sort of like one unpleasant thing on top of another makes your whole day to be quite difficult. You would describe that as an ordeal. So, yeah, it seems like they lost out. One guy lost some money, another guy lost a diamond, but curiously enough, strangely enough, maybe one of the passengers on the ship was shopping in London a few days later or a week or so later. They saw Potter and Padishaw shopping in downtown London like two friends who had just come into a good deal of money. You would expect these guys to be unhappy, miserable, and certainly not throwing a lot of money around because they just both lost a lot of money, but they were shopping and hanging out and spending good times together as if they had come into a good deal of money. When you come into something, it sort of just lands in your lap. You inherit money, possibly. You win money. Someone just gives you money as an old birthday gift or something like that. It's not expected. It's not planned. It's not something you knew about. It's something that just sort of happens because you happen to be lucky at that time or something. So these two guys were shopping as if they had just won the lottery when we would have expected them to be unhappy because they lost money, but now they have money. Where did that money come from?
An interesting end to the story. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation about this story. It's time now to listen to Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一句提到，船上有一位钻石商人推测，帕迪莎的钻石很可能价值数千英镑。那么文中呢是用 worth several thousand pounds 来表达价值数千英镑。那么 worth 它就是表达价值什么什么，或者是值得点点点的。我们来学习它的相关用法。第一种呢，我们可以用来表达值多少钱的。那它的用法就是 be 动词加上 worth 加上金额。例如 The painting is now worth $5 million. 那幅画现在价值500万美元。好，第二个用法我们可以用 worth 去表达值得什么什么的。那它的用法是 be 动词加上 worth 再加名词或动名词。例如 The novel is worth reading. 那本小说值得一看。那你也可以讲说 The town is absolutely worth a visit. 那个城镇啊，绝对值得造访。好，那另外一个固定用法是 worth it. 它可以用来表达值得点点点的，或是值得做某事。我们来看常见的句型有两种。第一种是 something is worth it. 举例来说 This laptop is more expensive, but it's worth it. 这台笔电比较贵，不过啊，它很值得。那第二个句型是 It's worth it 再加上不定词 to be， 这时候是表达值得做某事。那其中的 it 是虚主词，用来代替真正的主词，就是后面的 to be， 用来表达说这件事情呢 is worth it， 所以我们用 it's worth it 再加上不定词 to be。 举例来说 Do you think it's worth it to spend money on mobile games？ 你认为把钱花在手游上值得吗？课文下一句写道 Considering this information and the level of interest aboard the ship, Potter decided to... 考量到这项讯息和船上对这件事感兴趣的程度 Potter 决定... 好，那么句中的这个 level of interest 就是表达感兴趣的程度。那我们这边是要介绍 considering 的用法哦。Considering 它表示考量到... 鉴于什么什么，那它可以当介系词或是连接词用。当介系词的时候，后面是要接名词，或者是也可以接 WH 疑问词所引导的名词子句。好，那么 considering 当连接词的时候，后面是接 that 子句，这个 that 可以省略。例如 Considering how small their budget was, they did a pretty good job. 考量到他们的预算那么低，他们表现得相当不错。好，再造一个例句。He's in good condition, considering he's over 80 years old. 或者是 considering that he's over 80 years old. 考量到他已经超过80岁，他的身体状况是良好的，还蛮好的。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾这些单字吧。
Speculate. The rescue team speculated that the hiker may have fallen into the river. Auction.To pay off her debts, Penny auctioned off her late grandmother's jewelry. Butcher. He took out a sharp knife and butchered the pig right in front of us. Promptly. After the exam, Brooke promptly forgot everything she had studied. Slaughter. Thousands of rhinos have been slaughtered for their horns. Forbid. Most libraries forbid eating and drinking in the building. Obligation. If he hasn't completed the work, you're under no obligation to pay him.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is there more to the story than the narrator is telling us? What do you think really happened?
That's a good question. Well, the narrator hints, especially at the end, that Padishah and Potter were working together the whole time. So I think that they were in cahoots together. That's a good expression, meaning they were sort of plotting and planning secretly together. They had a secret agenda, and they fooled everyone on the boat into giving them lots of money, and that diamond that disappeared from Padishah's turban was probably just glass.
Well, I think it's highly likely that they were more interested in the ostriches themselves than the diamond, since the diamond probably was fake. It was probably a rhinestone. They were just hungry and wanted to have some ostrich steaks.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.